There was a domestic terrorist attack over the weekend, and if I lived in a prior decade, I might not have heard a single word about it. If my only sources of information were newspaper or broadcast TV, I wouldn't even be discussing this story. But thanks to the evil right-wing internet conspiracy theorist extremists we otherwise call the alternative media, we actually do know a lot about what would be a major national story in any sane world. But just in case you're not caught up, here's a quick rundown of the facts. Early Saturday morning, Willem Van Spronsen, a man with a prior history of physical aggression toward police officers, approached the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma, Washington. That's an immigration and customs enforcement holding facility. He was armed with his own illegal serial-free AR build, encouraging others to disregard the law and build the same sort of weapons, but we're not going to talk about banning them this time because that carries no political benefit in this case, as well as incendiary devices, reported as Molotov cocktails. He threw the explosives at vehicles and buildings, setting one car on fire, and unsuccessfully attempted to ignite a propane tank. Officers responded, reporting shots fired. It's not currently clear if police fired first or if Van Spronsen fired at them first, if at all. In all, 4 officers responded. None of them were injured. Van Spronsen was dead at the scene from multiple gunshot wounds. A longtime friend of Van Spronsen says she believes this was intentional suicide by cop, an effort to become a martyr for his political beliefs. And it appears that's the case, since Van Spronsen sent letters to his friends saying as much, and since he also wrote a manifesto condemning what he views as a fascist state and its detention centers. He claimed to act as an individual and not on behalf of any group, but he also wrote, quote, "I am Antifa," and his area comrades were immediately out praising him, protesting the police, and saying his efforts were only a start of what is needed, and that they wish he had razed the entire facility to the ground. In that context, this is yet another case of either miraculous or incompetent failure for Antifa. Was it due to good fortune, or simply to a lack of skill that nobody else was hurt in this episode? I suppose an overall lack of skill is what leads one to join Antifa in the first place, but whatever the explanation, the minimized damage is not for lack of effort, and it comes with an explicit call for a better effort next time. This was a politically motivated, violent attack on a federal building with organized calls for additional violence in response if all the facts remain the same. And this was a similar right-wing attack on, say, the EPA or the ATF. Are we supposed to believe that wouldn't be the leading news story in the country? Beyond the violent attack itself, the most frustrating thing about this story is the collective media shrug in response to it, the collective media failure to apply the same scrutiny they assuredly would if this story came with a more convenient political narrative. The Quietest terrorist attack comes with the loudest double standards, the first of which is the overall media silence reporting it. On the Sunday stream, I was wondering, when I turn on the news in the morning, will I even hear this story mentioned? And predictably, the answer was no. Not a single word about this story in NBC's entire 2 hours of morning news coverage. The same goes for CBS. The same goes for Tuesday morning as well. There's no time for such silliness when Trump tweeted something mean again and internet memes about Area 51 are all the rage.
The tongue-in-cheek invite also says, if we Naruto run, we can move faster than their bullets, a reference to the running style of a fictional ninja. The Facebook page is filled with satirical memes about Area 51, but the government isn't laughing.
If joking about storming a federal facility is a worthy story, why isn't seriously advocating it? Why isn't actually doing it? Armed, no less. A worthy story. In fact, the only major network to give any coverage to this story was ABC, with about 15 seconds worth in a broader story about ICE protests on Sunday's Good Morning America.
Following protests at a Tacoma migrant detention center, police shot and killed a man armed with a rifle. Officers say he tried to use devices to set fire to the building and cars.
I don't know what his motivation was or why anyone would try to set a concrete building on fire.
Motive unknown. It's all a mystery. Move along, folks. There's nothing to see here. That may have been accurate on Sunday morning, but since then, plenty of motivational information has emerged. You would think an update to the story to clarify that mystery would be helpful. I guess I shouldn't say every network ignored this story. I have to credit CNN, who gave it a mention too. A few months ago, praising this terrorist's John Brown gun club as the good guys.
That's right. This guy's a good guy? Well, wait a minute. That Wu-Tang hat is a good sign. I'm heading to meet the Seattle area chapter called the Puget Sound John Brown Gun Club.
Yep, there's your good guy terrorist right there, or at least I'm fairly sure that's him. Another shot from the trailer for this episode is confirmed to include Vance Bronson, as reported by Andy Ngo. The host of this particular CNN show, W. Kamau Bell, also urged his following to do what you can to support this group. And that tweet is still up presently. But retrospectively, maybe Bell will retract his promotion. I don't think he was knowingly supporting a terrorist organization at the time, but that is the effect the tweet has now. And I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for Twitter to do anything about it. Which brings us to our second point, the glaring social media double standard in play in this case. Examples of unpunished randos praising the attack and calling for more are a dime a dozen on Twitter, but you likely can't chalk those up to the number simply being too many to monitor. If it was simply a volume issue, you would think at least the high-profile praising of this terrorism would see some response from Twitter regarding the blatant violation of Twitter's own rules. Definitely legitimate African-American racial activist Sean King tweeted on Monday praising both the terrorist letter urging further terrorist action and lovingly showing a photo of his death site saying the terrorist was murdered, that he was no terrorist at all, and that he was a hero akin to abolitionist John Brown, and that these camps must be shut down, as Sean King has earlier posted, by any means necessary. Explicitly, in Twitter's rules, you cannot post material praising or advocating violence. But Sean's tweets praising this violence were up all day Monday. They're down as of now. It's unclear if Twitter forced him to delete them or if Sean just did that voluntarily due to the backlash. But even if Twitter did force the deletion, they haven't banned his account or stopped him from tweeting. As of this recording, he's still tweeting away. And his call for ending ICE detention centers by any means necessary is still his pinned tweet. But hey, I get it. Jack has limited resources, and he has to police what really matters, like banning far-right extremist terrorist Lindsay Shepard this week for calling a man a man. And it's even worse over on Facebook, where you'll recall figures like Alex Jones, Paul Joseph Watson, Milo, Laura Loomer, and others have all been permanently banned as so-called dangerous individuals. Somehow they're more dangerous than Seattle Antifa saying, "We cannot let the terrorist's death go unanswered. His death must serve as a call to direct action," explicitly praising martyrdom as the ultimate stand against oppression. That was posted Saturday night. Still up as I record this video. Not that dangerous, apparently. At least not compared to the truth about turning the friggin' frogs gay. Another glaring double standard to consider here is the concept of speech emboldening extremists. Remember, Trump emboldened the tiki tortures in Charlottesville. He emboldened the assault smirk of Nick Sandmann. He emboldened the black-white supremacists who attacked Jussie Smollett. Even this week, they're saying Trump's tweets embolden white nationalists.
Pressed whether he's concerned people view his comments as racist and that white nationalists will embrace his words.
It doesn't concern me because many people agree with me. And all I'm saying, they want to leave, they can leave.
That's the narrative we're supposed to accept, that hyperbolic language inspires extremism, and therefore the original speaker bears responsibility for the actions of others. Never mind the fact that this terrorist specifically used the concentration camp language originated and defended by the so-called squad, AOC and Ilhan Omar, among others.
There are camps and people are being concentrated. This is very simple. I don't even know why this is a controversial.
And remember, every time Trump is supposedly responsible for the actions of others, it's on him to condemn the evil to our subjective satisfaction. And if he fails to disavow, he bears even more responsibility for the further extremism to come. You know, if he fails to disavow like this.
Will you condemn Antifa for the attack in Washington?
We'll be making statements.
It's easy to condemn a terrorist attack. Will you condemn the Antifa attack in Washington over the weekend? It's easy to condemn terrorism. Will you condemn it?
Is it clear?
To be clear, I am not actually advocating these standards. I'm not looking for more bans. I am not looking to further restrict speech such that your opinions are deemed incitement to violence. What I am looking for is a coherent and consistent set of rules and principles, because without them, we aren't playing for values or ideals at all. We're just playing for teams. When you play for teams, the fight gets dirty, and that's the last thing I want. I personally think the existing U.S. First Amendment legal framework gets it right. You can say whatever dumb opinion you want, short of imminently calling for violence. Yes, that means the idiotic exaggerations and communistic ideals of the squad are protected. But on the flip side, so is my right to call them idiots. And so is the president's right to tell them to go back home to their countries, regardless of whether or not he's right. So you can advocate and uphold a stricter standard. Sure, maybe these forms of speech should be out of bounds by some measure, but you better make damn sure that your measure applies to your political friends and opponents alike. Because as soon as this game includes one set of rules for your team and another set of rules for mine, you get conflict. Inevitably, there are worse fates than the hurt feelings our censorship culture is constantly scrambling to avert, and Saturday's violent attack was one of them. If hurt feelings are the trade-off for a more level playing field of speech, I think we'd all be wise to take that deal. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.